So the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, thinks that it's perfectly fine to teach critical race theory in the military. He says the military is kind of a university. And what's wrong with learning about your country? And what's wrong with even reading Marx or Lenin? And what's wrong with open debate and discussion? And he himself is on this kind of intellectual quest, trying to understand, for example, what led the people in January 6th to attempt to overthrow the Constitution. Listen.
On the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university, and it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend?
Now, this statement by Mark Milley is delivered with a kind of air of authority and solemnity, but far from reflecting a open-minded desire for knowledge or truth. I think it reveals the exact opposite, a certain close-mindedness, dogmatism, and just outright obtuseness. First of all, the guys who pushed their way into the Capitol on January 6th, they weren't trying to overthrow the Constitution. Why don't you talk to some of them? Look at their view of the matter. They believed that there was massive election fraud. You might not agree with them, but that was their belief, and they had seen testimonies and public hearings that suggested exactly that. They wanted some forum to have it adjudicated. They wanted to communicate their frustration to their elected representatives. That's what they were trying to do. They weren't trying to provoke a civil war. They weren't trying to overthrow the government by coup. They weren't trying to tear up the Constitution. None of that. Now, what about critical race theory? Well, critical race theory is not a system of discussion and debate. On the contrary, it is a Marxist ideology that supplants the issue of class with the issue of race. It's a program of indoctrination. One of the themes of Marxism is to shut down alternative forms of debate, and that's what the critical race theory people try to do. They brand as racist any point of view that doesn't agree with them. And so ultimately, this is a deeply intolerant, militant ideology that instills a certain kind of hatred and division as part of its program. Marxism was all about division. You claim, Mark Milley, to have read Marx. You should know that. So this is why the critical race theorists go about stigmatizing their opponents, trying to get them fired, ostracized, removed from social media, banned. And so is this the toxic brew that you want to introduce in the military? Evidently you do. Evidently you think that this program of indoctrination is somehow a program of enlightenment, of discussion, and of debate. You couldn't be more wrong, and despite all the medals, you come across as a complete fool.